Hi there and welcome to a new tutorial video on CG Masterclass. In this video we're going to create this forest scene that contains two texture terrain scans and a rock model. We're going to combine these all together so we can create this scene, and in the end we will also make a snow version that looks like this. Because we're using high resolution textures, 8K textures, we have a lot of displacement data. And this allows us to make a scene like this snow version. How this works, I will show you in a couple of minutes. So, quick overview in Blender. So we have two objects, a plane object that is using the materials, leaf ground and a rocky ground. I mixed these by using the Vertex Painting. If we go to the Vertex Painting, you can see I added some paint. And that's pretty much it. Then it's all about the nodes. So I will use a subdivision, but then we focus on all the node trees in the material editor. All right, so I like to start from scratch. So we have a new Blender file and let's get started. So we remove the cube and I like to remove the lamp in the scene. Let's name the collection to nature. So all the things related to nature will be stored in this collection. I'd like to add another one, and this is cameras. So we can move the camera right there. And for now, this is good. So if we have more things, we create new collections. But let's get started. So the first thing we do is go to Add, Mesh, Plane. And I have to say, I'm working with Blender 3.0 beta version. I tried to add screencast, but nothing was working. So I have to mention all the keys I'm pressing. So if I miss a key, sorry for that. I'm trying to do as best as I can. So I added a plane and we're going to name this to terrain. So, and it's stored in the nature folder. Very good. All right, we're going to scale this, press S9. S2, maybe a little bit smaller. So I'm aiming for something that has a size that feels good. If you press N, you can see how many meters. So it's now, let's make this 30 meters to make it like round numbers. That's fine. Pressing Ctrl A, rotation and scales, and now you reset the scaling. So if you use displacement, you should have a good looking result. We have the camera, press the left mouse click, press R, rotate this a little bit and move this to this area. And this way you covering the whole plane. So if I put my camera right there, I've got some empty area that I'm not using, and that's not good. So we have the forest plane. I also like to import one of my new models. That is for my upcoming environmental course. First, let's import it, and I will tell you some information about it. So this model is not available. I added it on my Patreon together with some other ones. But all the other materials that I work with are available on Polyhaven. I will show you where you get. When you go to polyhaven.com, you have all free CC0 assets and no use of registration. So what we're going to use are some textures, and that is the Forest Leaves 04 texture, and I'm going to mix this one with rocky ground, that one. So I will mix it with this one. So if you are new to Polyhaven, it's too good to be true. So how this works is you don't have to sign in, you just click download and you have it. You can define this if you want to have 2K or 4K textures. So if you have a mid-range system, you should go for 4K. If you have this nice high-end system with a lot of RAM memory, definitely go for 8K because that will that's worth the quality. All right, then you click download and put your download in a folder so you can easily append it. So we go back to Blender, to our scene, and we just imported the model. I like to scale this down a little bit. Something like this, Ctrl A, rotation and scale. And during this tutorial, I will do some more scaling on the model, also for the UV map but that's for later. As you can see, the origin point is right there. So this is a model, still work in progress. That's why it's not available on Polyhaven, but I added it so you can experiment with it. It's on my Patreon. I will post a link where you can get it. But first of all, I need to do a quick fix, and that's putting the origin in the middle. Pressing spacebar, press origin, and you want to do origin to geometry. And now this origin is snapping to the middle, and this allows us to simply rotate it in an easy way. So let's go to the viewport. I like to rise my camera a little bit. So we select it, left mouse, G and Z, and we lift the camera. So now we press lift, left click on the rock, R, Z, and you're rotating this a little bit. Again, we keep tuning on this model. RZ, is something like this. Looks good. All right, so back to the plane. This is already scaled. I like to add some subdivisions. So 1 time, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. That's a nice amount of vertices. So why am I adding all these extra vertices? Well, that's because I want to add some heat variation. So I'm pressing O for proportional editing, and I'm going to rise this a little bit. So of course we're going to add some displacement from the texture scan, but overall I want to have some random heat mixing. As you can see on the background, we need to align this a little bit with the terrain. I'm loving these photo scans. They contain so much quality, or what do you say, details. It's really fun to work with. So we go to the camera view, pressing 0 on the numpad, maybe rising this one as well. So we keep doing this all the time, so I'm not finishing with this yet. All right, so we have the plane. We have the rock model. It still contains the old name, so let's go for this. That's much better. And I like to go to the shading. Before we go there, I like to disable these two because it will load all the textures, and I want to go to solid view, and now I can enable them. So left click on the rock formation, and we going to add textures. Let's go to add texture, image texture, and go to open, and here are my rock textures. So you can see, maybe I can go for a thumbnail. There are 2 types, albedo and diffuse. So when I created these rock scans, there was a hard shadow. So give you a sample. I have to reduce. I'm not going to do that. I'll first adding a roughness so I don't have to reduce the specular. Alrighty, go. Okay, material. So now it's loading it. So there we have it. So this was my rock scan, and as you can see, there's a very hard shadow visible. So in reality, you can only add a camera on this left side to have the right shadow casting. But what if we want to have shadow coming from the right? Then we have a conflict with the shadow. So I used a delighter to remove it. So we'll show you how that works in a second. And it's removed. It's pure magic. And this way I can photo scan with sunlight, and afterwards I remove it. So there is a small issue because it's now really bright. And one thing you can do is mix this with an ambient occlusion. Of course, we work with cycles, so it should add some shadows by itself. But we have ambient occlusion data, so I'm going to mix that anyway. Go to non-color, and we go to add color mix RGB. So we're going to put this one in the bottom. You want to make the mix multiply to have a good blending. So it takes some time, and there we go. So you can choose to go for sRGB, then you will have a more colorful model. But using the non-color is purely for the shadows. So it's a very small, well, you have to make this one. Maybe it's a little bit more visible now. You use the slider. You can see the difference. So this looks good to me. All right. Then we also have a normal map. Factor, normal map. This one, non-color. Putting this into the color, and that one in the normal map. So this will add some extra detail. What a normal map is normally doing. So you can see the extra details. All right, so we go to solid. This model also has a heat map. So to activate this one, I like to go to cycles, we go to experimental, and we go to the material settings, and make this displacement and bump. And this way we can now import and add a factor displacement. And I like to duplicate the normal map so we can easily go for a heat map and make this non-color, because a displacement is non-color data. And I think it's loading. There we have it. Putting this in the heat and the displacement in the displacement. So I like to reduce the scaling to 0.5 and have a very quick preview on how that looks like. Before we do that, I like to do some basic lighting, sky texture, Nishida, and let's take a look how that looks like. Whoosh. All right, so not too bad. As you can see, it is very bright. First of all, I like to rotate the light a little bit. So I like to have something like this. So we have nice sunlight casting on the rock model. Maybe want to reduce the bump a little bit to 0.3. I think it's not active because we have to subdivide surface, adapt this subdivision, and make this 2. So how does it look like right now? Part of this tutorial is that we need to wait sometimes for the rendering. Sometimes I will pause it, but most of the time I just wait for the render if there are no glitches. As you can see, there are some glitches on the side, so we have to merge this better with the terrain. Speaking of the terrain, we can start working on it. Before we do that, I want to do something on the color management and make the look, let's say, medium high contrast, and make the exposure -2. And I will show you how this will affect the scene. I'm reducing the level viewport to 1 because we had to wait a long time for a quick preview render, and I don't want that. So I'll show you if I keep this 0, it's very bright, but making this -2, it looks more natural. Maybe I'm going to change this later in the tutorial, but all my focus is now on the terrain. Okay, we have the plane, and I like to do some unwrapping. Control L, U, and unwrap. Okay, so before we go to the UV editing, I like to disable these two because it will load the textures solid, and now you can activate them. If you're doing simple texture work, you don't have to do this, but if you have large terrain, it will really hit the performance because it's going to load all the textures. So we unwrap the UV map, and we're going to select everything, and pressing S, let's say 9. So it's now scaled 9 times. And we need the texture or the material. So we go to the material editor and we want something there. So what I can do is simply go to the shading, and we're going to add an import image texture, and then we go to import the roughness and the normal. What's very useful, because we're using the textures from Polyhaven, you go to File, Append, and it's key that you save your materials in a folder. So we have textures. Textures, we go to the model, we go to material, and you import the material, and that's it. Same for the other one. File, Append, and rocks ground 02, material, rocks ground 2. So nothing really happens. That's because we need to import forest leaves 04. I like to rename this to terrain, because we're going to mix it, and otherwise it's just use one texture. So clicking on it, we go to shading, and the texture is now applied. So if we want to have a preview, we go to render. This shouldn't take that long. Okay, now it's rendering. So I think we are well. I think I'm going to lower the size, so making it a little bit smaller. Okay. Oh, turn off proportional editing. That's something like this. Okay. So the next thing, what I like to do, I can go to material preview to have real-time visibility of our material. So we now have one material on the terrain and we have our rock model. So we're not going to work on the model, but we're going to work on the terrain. I mentioned that we're going to use Vertex Painting. So go to Vertex Color and click plus. So now you have color. That means you now have color data. Going to solid, you go to Vertex Paint. You go to this tool and make this solid black and increase the radius a little bit. So you can make it even a little bit bigger. So here is the camera. This is the model. And I want to surround this rock with some, let's make this big, with some rocky surface. So this way it will blend better in the scene. And maybe some over here, just a little bit. And not in front of the camera, that will look a little bit odd, but maybe like here. And you don't want to make it too round. Just remove this, it's not going to be visible. That was smart. Doing it not in front of the camera. So we want a little bit over there and some over here. I just like to make this clean. Okay, that's enough. Don't go too wild on this. You just want to have some rock surface in your scene. So, okay, good. All right, now we have vertex data. So we go to shading. And I want to combine this material with the rocky surface. So to enable this, you go to material, click plus, and we add the rock ground 02 because we appended this material. So the only thing we need to do is copy this material. We go to terrain and we paste it. And we drag this with pressing G to the bottom. Okay, problem with this setup, oh, it was loading, I guess, is that it now has two material outputs, so you should delete one of these. Okay, and it's gone. And now you can just delete this rock ground 02, otherwise it will be a little bit confusing. So we have the material output, and I like to go to add shader, mix shader, putting this right there, and it's calculating, and we're putting this one, I guess it's on top, I'm not sure. We will see, otherwise we have to flip it. We go to input, vertex color, and if you click on this bar, it will automatically click on color. As you can see, color. All right, so we put the color. Because I use these 8K textures, it's loading quite, it's loading all the time, so I have some spikes. Anyway, let's take a look what we have in the material preview. So it's going to load the textures. Okay, so we have a nice rocky surface over there. Looks very good to me. And maybe I'm going to size the textures, but for now we keep it like this. Okay, before going to tweak the displacement, I like to add a bind occlusion. Because we have these maps, and normally you should not do that in a ray tracer because it is casting these ambient light automatically, but we have the information, so why not? My experience is that it is looking very good. So ambient occlusion, make this non-color, and oh, this takes so much time. And we go to add color mix RGB, and we're putting this in the bottom, multiply, and make it non-color because it's a black and white image. You can do this faster. Oh, you have spikes and then it's randomly doing weird stuff, non-color. All right, to make this 1, not 0, 1, the full amount of in the factor. All right, I'd like to do this exactly the same with the other texture, dragging this a little bit more to the bottom. Shift D, add color mix RGB. And ambient occlusion. I took this texture scan in Norway. Was a lovely surface. Surfaces, rocky, grass, very wild. It took me some days to find the right locations, but then it was like a gold mine. And I had my drone with me, so I was also I could also make some drone scans, large terrain scans. And that was great. So we now have ambient data, and that should be good. All right, so let's go to the render view. And it's calculating. So nothing really fancy will happen, only it adds the darker colors from the ambient light. So this is going very well. So the next thing is working with the displacement. In fact, the same as we did with the rock. So we have this one, we can delete it. This is the displacement texture. And we have one over here. So I like to use, this is a displacement node. And let's drag this to this position. And we have one over here. So I like to mix these two using the vertex color to activate it. So color mix RGB, putting it right there. And maybe going to edit and to do interface. That makes it better for you to see what I'm doing. Also harder for me to combine things. Okay, the color goes into the bottom, and we have the vertex color data that we painted. We're now using it for the principal nodes, but I also like to use this for the displacement data. We're putting it right there, and this should work. So it's using a value. Oh, come on. I'm waiting for of 0.06, and I think this is really low. We're having a scale of 1. So let's have a value of 0.3. Wondering how that looks like. So we go to the camera view and render. So probably not a lot will happen because we still have to activate this in the settings. So it's now displacement only. Let's make the displacement and bump. Yep. And we should add a subdivision surface and make this adaptive subdivision. It's still an experimental feature. I'm not sure why, because everyone's now using it. And I still like to use the displacement in the modify tab, but I'm trying to do everything in the nodes now. Make this 2. Making this 2 will also take more time to load the scene, so that you are aware of this. And I like to scale this a little bit down. Okay, and render. So I changed the size of my screen, but now I also have bigger vertices. Not sure if you like that. And I'm rendering this in, or recording this in 4K, so it should work. So what do we have? I think it looks weird, and that's because we have to flip the colors. So now the wrong displacement is applied on the wrong surface. So the leaves are applied on the rocks, and the rocks are applied on the leaves. So by swiping these, it looks much better. Okay, so we have the rocks, we have the terrain, so the leaves and the rocks, but it's all very bright. I like to add some shadows, so it's breaking the sunlight a little bit. You can also use the sun rotation or the sun elevation. Make this 14. So the sun is a little bit lower. It's not that bad. And Control B, you only render the viewport or the camera. So we can turn this around. I don't know what's the best color is. Something like this maybe. I mean, you can keep playing with it. That's the thing I just wanted to say. So for adding the shadows, you can do this in multiple ways. The way I like to do this is doing it the most realistic way, and that is by adding real trees. So you have to go to Preference and go to Add-ons. I'm going to change this interface back because I'm getting crazy. Oh, you go to Add-ons and click Trees, and then you have the Sapling tree generator. By default, it's turned off, so you have to turn it on. If you do that, you go to Add Curve and go to Sapling Tree Gen. So it's adding a tree. I go to the details and I want branch splitting. Make the levels 3, so you have more branches, or levels, and I also want more branches. Okay, maybe make this 5. Go back to 4. Maybe I have to extend the levels a little bit more. I don't know, but this is good. Scale the tree to something like this. Put it far away, very important. Otherwise you have very hard shadows. Putting them right there, Shift D, rotate it a little bit, and somewhere like that. And let's have a look how this looks like rendering. So some people make a plane, adding holes in the plane and putting this in the sky. So this is a way how you can cast shadows. The fun thing of this is you really see branches as a shadow on your terrain. And that works really well for me. So I have to put them a little bit downwards. And let's take a look how this. You can do this in real time by rendering. Maybe I should do that. I'm just a little bit lazy. We have to recalculate it. It takes more time, and that's not necessary. But we're still doing that. Okay, look at that. So there are now quite a lot of shadows in the scene, but that's fine. So look at the scene, how well this went. I'm very positive about the result. Yeah, I'm very positive. So one thing I like to change is the way how it's rendered. So normally before Blender 3.0, I never used the denoiser, but right now this denoiser is worth it to use. So I'm going to do a recalculation, but it's really starting to get magic, because after a couple of samples, you get this real sharp render result. So I'm now doing renders into denoise. So it starts very blurry, but look at that. Sharper and sharper, and we're still at 4 samples. So imagine when you have 20 samples, you have an ultra sharp render image. Just amazing. All right, that's just fun. So what do we have right now? So we started with one material, the forest leaves. I added another one, the rocky surface. I painted some vertex paint on the terrain. Then I added this vertex color node to combine these two together. I did it for the principal nodes and the displacement. So this way I'm mixing these two materials. I'm blending them so you get a nice result. This is a core way of working in environments. You always blend things. Looking at paintings, you see painters blend colors. We do this with materials. And we can also do this now with displacement. So with the release of Blender 3.0, this gets very comfortable in a very rapid way. So I like to make a render, but before we do that, I want to do something else. What I like to do is also making a snow version. And we do this from scratch. So you go to Add, Import Geometry. So the geometry node has all sort of outputs, and it contains the data of the surface where you're working on. So we're now focusing on the terrain, and we want to work with the normal and with the true normal. All right, so we have to go to Add, is a converter, separate RGB, and we want 2 of them. And the normal goes into image and the true normal as well. And I want to use a color mix RGB. So you want to have the blue and the blue. So now you're having the sort of Z value of the models. And this is a very key very key data if you want to add, for example, snow or a dirt layer. I will show you in a minute how this looks like. But first, I want to add a color ramp. And the color ramp defines how much you get. And we can do this in real time in a minute. All right. So we put the mix in the factor. And I want to increase this a little bit. Okay. Now we are on this level. So this is our color output for the base color. What I like to do now is adding a new mix node, color mix RGB, and we duplicate this. All right, so we have 2 mix nodes. One is for the base color, and the other one is for the subsurface color. All right, so the first one is, the top one is solid black. And you can import the color of the color ramp in the factor. Same for the other one. Write this, yes, and we make this one white. Okay, what you can do right now is putting the output from the texture color. This one goes in the bottom, and that one goes on top. You're still following me? Okay, I like to do some organization. All right. So this data, this white data, this is like the snow color. And we can put this on top. It's very easily to turn back if we want. And you want to have this one in the subsurface color. And you have the subsurface radius. This should be 0.5. Otherwise, you get a sort of red color on your snow. 0.5. Okay. So I'm very curious how this looks like. So we start with hitting render. It's a very straightforward node tree. So you extract the normal data, so the Z data. With a color ramp, you can define how strong this data will be. So we're now getting this result. And we can fine tune this with the slider. Just checking if I'm happy. In fact, I want less snow, so I'm probably going for a lower value, like this. Should go the other way, something like this. Okay. It also depends on how, yeah, it should go the other way. How your level viewport is. So, oh, I love this. Yeah, this is better. Oh, suddenly it's doing weird things. And we stick them close together. So this updating mesh is very confusing. So you think you're having the right data. So I'm putting them really, really close. So if you swipe them the other way, like this, it just flips the normal data. Like this. Okay, so to make it even more confused, no, you copy this node tree. So like copy, and you paste it, and dragging this to the bottom, and you want to do exactly the same for the other one. So we have these two mixes, Shift D, and in the factor, okay, and this one goes on top, that one goes to the bottom, and you can put the black in the subsurface color, and that one goes in the base color. We have to put these a little bit backwards, so like this. Make this, by the way, 0.05, and we have this make 0.5, 0.5, and 0.5 to remove this red color. And we of course we have to add the 0.05, so we have a little bit of subsurface snow, so you can look through the white color. That's how snow behaves. So we're now getting in a state that we need to tune these values, and it takes some time. So I like to go for a quick render now and just check out what happens in the render, and then we can find other values or not, but we need some visual first. Okay, I like this. So I probably need to flip these. So there's quite a lot of snow on this area, and I need to find a way how to get rid of that so it's blending. Something is happening. Oh. Okay. So I think I'm going to pause the video because I want to find the right values, and then I come back and show you what the best slider value was. So back in a second. Alright, so I spent some time in finding the right values for the snow layer. I never write down the values, especially not for tutorials. It's kind of weird because every scene is different, and when I should copy exactly these same values, it's going to look weird. So take your time, don't rush this, and everything will be fine. So for the leaves, I've got a more smoothened, more blending version, and for the rocks, it's more sharpening. So the black and white are more sharpened, and that results in the following. In the following result, I'm going to do a render. I'm using a subdivision level of 2, so take some time to calculate. It's not that extreme. The final render will get a level of 3, so that will take over a minute. So there you see it. The forest floor or the leaves are more dense, and the rocky surface is more open. So if I push this slider backwards, it's going to be more dense, and maybe that's exactly what you want, so that's up to you. But it's not something I like to add in the scene, otherwise you cannot really see the difference. So this is the other result. So I like to stick with this value, and maybe going to fine tune this in the end, but we're leaving this for now. Okay, I like to go to the solid view, otherwise it's loading and loading. It's a little bit annoying. and focusing on the rock. So what we will do is copy the node tree, that one, copy, selecting the rock and paste it. Then I like to duplicate a mix node. Be aware it's a mix. Do not duplicate or multiply. Make the one on top black and the one here at the bottom white. You need these values when you're going to add these right there. Same as we did with the flooring, with the terrain. Going to put these in the factor. Pretty straightforward. So the black goes into the subsurface color, and the white goes into the base color, and then you add these in the right inputs. So you want black for the subsurface color and white for the base color. That's pretty much it. And don't forget to make these 0.5. If you don't do this, you will get skin colors. Really weird. It took me a long time to discover this. It's not a bug, but it's a default setting. Just check if we've done this. Yeah, and yeah, it's all good. So like to have a value of 2, reduce the terrain to 1. We later will switch to 3, but for now 1 will do. And yeah, let's take a look how this looks like. Maybe it's one hit, but I'm not sure. We will find out in a minute. But yeah, this is only possible, these snow layers, because we have all the displacement data. If you do not have this, this is impossible. Now look at that. I think this is cool. This is really good. So you have a nice thin layer of snow. And if you want, you can make it more dense. It's up to you. I'm leaving this for now. Going to solid. And I could see some overlapping, or we need some overlapping. Same for here. And right there. Oh, Control Z. Push this on top. Why is this popping up all the time? Really annoying. Okay, maybe there as well. So now this rock should blend with the surface. Good. So check, double check. We have the terrain. Make this tree. Select the rock. Make this tree as well. So we go for a render. I like to start with the summer look. So you're going to disconnect. You put this in the base. Disconnect these, and it's very easy to import them. And so you're putting these in the base. Disconnect that one. Like this 0. Otherwise you have subdivision color, subsurface colors, and you don't want that. Zero, and the rock needs to be 0 as well. Okay, we are now ready for the summer render. So with sunlight and with no snow. So let's go to the render settings. I selected denoise. I want to have, let's go for 40 samples. That's more than enough. And I'm going to increase the resolution to 3080/40 and 2160. That's 4K resolution. Maybe tilt the camera a bit more to the edges, so it's in the middle. That's hard. Maybe just put this back. Oh, what are you doing? Okay, I'm not going to touch this. So the terrain is set, the rock is set. I will render it. I'll return when it's finished. I will pause the video and then we do the snow render. Okay, see you in a second. Pause it. So the render is finished, and as you can see, it turns out very, very well, especially the twigs and the leaves. And this is without snow. I can see some little issues like there. It's not blending perfectly. Same for this area over there and maybe here. So I have to fix this by merging the terrain. But I'm very positive for this effect. I'm closing this. So how you can solve that is selecting the terrain, and yeah, you just push this upwards. You don't want to do this too much because you're also losing quite a lot of detail, and that's not necessary. So now I want to have the snow version. So that is very simple. You put this one back in and that one into the base color. Make this 0.05, and we have to do this for the other one as well. So black goes in the subsurface color, in the base color, 0.05, and for the rock as well. And then we're finished. Black goes there, white goes on top, 0.05. I'm not going to change anything. I'm just going to hit F12, and then I will be back and showing you the result. All right, see you in a second. And there we have our snow render. Yeah, pretty good, and I'm very happy with the end result. So that is pretty much it. If you want to have some variation, what you can do is duplicate your rock and put these on the other areas where the vertex paint is. So if I select this and we go to the vertex paint, and my recorder is right there. So vertex paint, and it's right there. So object node, you duplicate this rock and just fully rotate it, and you go to the camera view and you merge this in the ground like this. And there is a little patch over here, Shift D, like there we go, and you need to rotate that one as well like this, GY, GX, and merge this. So you have some variation in your scene where you have the rocks. Alright, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and hope to see you in another one. Okay, bye bye.